You good? Okay. Right. So, and make sure you've got room behind you as well. No big deal. Karen's going to demonstrate everything. All right. So I want to do, please, again, raise your hand if you were not here last time. So, and Javier was not. Okay. Oh, and Anna, you weren't either. Okay, so this is Karen and Javier from year 2. Welcome. Thanks for coming. So we're going to do a really quick review. And then we're going to learn some shoulder stuff. And then I really want to practice a little bit today. I think that's really important. So, but let's start. We're going to go through our 1-minute warm-up, okay? So 1-minute warm-up is going to be a little side bending 3 or 4 times. We're going to zip through this. You could spend more time doing all of these range of motions, but we're kind of demonstrating it and teaching it. So up and down, extension and flexion. And then I'm going to teach this new movement today, which is like painting circles with your nose. So it's not neck rolling like this. It's imagining that you have a paintbrush on your nose and you're making circles in one direction. So we have flexion. We're combining flexion and extension with rotation. And then go the other way. So there's no lateral flexion really going on in this. Okay? Shoulder circles. And then kind of bend your knees a little bit, stabilize your hips, bring an elbow up, and follow your elbow behind you with your eyes so that we're doing some spinal rotation. If your pelvis moves, that's okay, but we're going to isolate the rotation in the spine if you keep, I refer to the headlights of your hips, right, pointing forward without going from side to side. Good, okay? Let's bring your hands together. Remember these. Wrist rolling. Good. So notice you're going in one direction and then reverse the other way. Do your 1984 wave. Other way. Yeah, good. Looking good. Okay, so this is one I want to show you, a new one. Be gentle. This is pretty intense, but it's a really good wrist. It's a really good wrist one. So you're going to take a hand like this. Put your thumb on your metacarpal of your pinky, and then really gently pull down and put your wrist into flexion. And then switch to the that would be the 4th metacarpal, and pull down, and then the middle, and then the 2nd.
Pull straight down?
Yeah, you're just pulling straight down into a little bit of wrist flexion. This is pretty intense, so just be gentle. And you can just feel it, right? Whatever feels really good, and then do the other side. So for me, I know my left wrist is a little more sensitive to this, so gentle with this one. But this is a really good way to work your wrist. So then go into a little bit of extension. Other side. And then you can go like this. And then you can go like this. Just different wrist things. Warming up your wrists is really helpful. Okay. Hip circles. This one, I like to go, whoa, whoa. Okay. We gotta laugh a little bit here and have some fun. Okay, so bending the knees and then getting circles in your knees, working into the ankles. Does this feel okay on everybody's knees? So if your knees don't like it, then skip it. Good. Okay. All right. So there's my 1-minute warm-up. Take out a little bit. Okay. So, all right. We're going to learn a new breath today. Last time we talked about the diaphragm breath. So if you put your hand on your belly down here, and then we're going to breathe in and start your breath by expanding your belly out. and getting your belly open. And then we can bring that breath up into the rib cage more. And then down, and then the belly down. So it's filling the cup. So this cup starts here, and then we're bringing it all the way up, and then down, like that. So that's, I call it filling the cup. Now, on the exhale, remembering that we're trying to take the whole transversus abdominis and sort of shrink wrap it around the middle of our abdomen. So let's practice that one more time. Breathing in, fill the cup. Breathing out, that transversus abdominis engagement. All right, and then remember now, breathing in, and now engage the pelvic floor. So that stop yourself from peeing in midstream. So pull up on these pelvic floor muscles as we are squeezing our transversus abdominis gently. Okay, that's quick review. All right, so now we're going to add the third component to this, which is called Ujayi Breathing. So, did anybody watch this video? Oh, cool. Okay, so it's like Darth Vader breath, right? So everybody just start with your mouth. So notice this is really guttural. It's really in the throat. It's not really, well, actually we're going to get to the sinuses in a second. So do that breath, but touch the tip of the tongue to the roof of your mouth, just gently. And then okay, everybody got the H sound, right? Like that. Okay, now we're going to close the mouth, and we're going to try to do that through the nose. So touch the tip of the tongue to the roof of your mouth, and then this is one you're going to have to practice. And there's relevance to it because it's part of the core stabilization process. And if we're doing deeper work on people where we're applying more pressure, this is a great breath to apply to what you're doing. So partly this is going to create tone here, which is going to help stabilize your jaw as well, which then is just stabilizing part of the whole spinal mechanism. It's complex, but it's good. So, what am I forgetting with Ujayi breath? Okay, so with Ujayi breath, now, see if we can start this from down here. So the visualization is that we're inhaling this Darth Vader breath, but it really is almost like the suction is coming from here, and that's creating that negative pressure to draw the air into the lungs. Is this too much for everybody? You got it? Okay. This is some heavy kind of yoga breathing, but it's good for what we're trying to do. So let's close your eyes and touch the tip of the tongue to the roof of your mouth and find your Darth Vader breath expanding from your lower belly. So go ahead and try that. And then as you exhale, pull up the pelvic floor and tighten the transversus abdominis. And then we'll repeat that one more time. And again, a little tone in the pelvic floor is super helpful. Okay? That's a big one. It's a lot. If you're like, I got questions, ask me later, or let's review it in the videos too, because I want to keep moving. Okay, so horse stance. We're going to talk about the different feet positions again, just to review them. Symmetrical. This is a symmetrical pose, right? So we're going to go and let's shift into snowboarder stance. So we're turning the right foot in a little and the left foot out more. And then this is an asymmetrical stance. So Ariel, if you take your left foot and turn it in a little, there you go, more like that. So imagine you have a massage or a PT table here, and your person's on the table, and you're doing some effleurage. Then kind of this foot positioning feels pretty good. Okay, so pivot and just go to the other side. Practicing pivoting is actually helpful too for what we're doing as manual therapists. So then just imagine we're going into the effleurage here. So as we're going into the effleurage, let's just bend that front leg and then come back and bend the front leg and come back, okay? and then again to review vectors. So our center of gravity, put your hand on your center of gravity. Where do you remember? Like here, right? Like just below our belly button. So our center of gravity kind of directs where the vector of force goes when we're applying force in the body work that we're doing. Yawning. It's contagious. Okay, so for example, if we're in snowboarder stance, and I have a person right here on a table, and I want to do some effleurage, that my vector is basically my belly button, let's just call it the belly button or the center of gravity, is sort of directing in the same direction as the force that I'm applying. So maybe, and we're just going to talk about effleurage right now because petrissage is a little more complex. But this is the basic idea, is that my body weight, which is creating the force, is directing into the vector of force I want to put into the person's body. Does that make sense? Yeah?
Yes.
At least pretend it does. Say yes, David. Okay. And okay, thanks. And we're gonna when we get on the table, that'll make more sense, I think. Okay, so that's going to be our review. Now we're going to get into shoulder stabilization. So there's basically, here's big fancy words. We're going to practice closed chain isometric shoulder contraction, okay? So, but first we're going to do it in the air like this. So put your hands out like this. And we've got basically the three forces, or the three vectors we're going to be working with, are pushing in, rotating in, and pushing up. But we're going to kind of combine all those, so it's going to look like this. You got to make the sound, right? So now the key when we're doing this, to learn it, is to have your elbows nice and straight, like kind of locked, okay? You can do it bent elbowed, but we want to practice it this way, like this. So again, it's in, which is basically like going to get your pec major activated. Rotating in like this is going to do a myriad of things, but part of it is going to help get your serratus anterior engaged. And up is going to be kind of like deltoid and a little bit of biceps, but the whole idea is that we're getting the scapula to be supporting the shoulder and not into all these rotator cuff tendons, because if you do a bunch of body work, after years your rotator cuff's going to be really pissed off. So can you make sure that this angles towards me? So why don't you all find a table, and then kind of, if you're going to sort of match up sort of by height, so tall people go to one table, medium people go to another, right? And I say that so you can set the table height up to be about a good height for everybody. And if you're going to be in front of me, you're going to be on camera, so it's your choice. You can, but don't block the way, if that's all. So you could go around that. Yeah, we can. Yeah, sorry. Well.
See how you are?
Yeah. Okay, so I want everybody to get into like kind of the warrior one. We didn't do that, but that's going to be where your hips are facing the table. And you're lunging, so you're asymmetrical. So your front knee is a little bent, your back leg's basically straight, and so I want you to put your hands into the table. So I would recommend raising that table up for you three. Yeah, this is why we got to figure out this. This all kind of like table height ties into body mechanics really well. So you're going to want to have, and here the table is going to be a little higher than it might normally because we don't have a body, right? It's just right on the table. So go ahead and the first thing I want you to do is just take your body weight and just kind of loosely lean in, and look what happens to your shoulders, right? Your shoulders come up. If you can feel like there's pressure on the acromion, like and subacromion process, it's really like, man, if you're putting a lot of pressure in here, over time, this really wears you out. Okay, so this is what we want to avoid. So if we go here then, so this is where it's isometric, right? We're not moving our hands, and it's closed chains because our hands are connected to the table. So first, do the 3 movements separately. So kind of lean in a little bit and push your thumbs together in this vector. All right, everybody got that? And so with your elbows straight, see if you can feel your pec major engaging. Everybody got that? You don't have to crank it. It's just create a little bit of like contraction there, okay? Now, from that, then rotate your hands just a little bit in like this while you're pushing in. And then see if you can get this, again, elbows straight, and we want to try to prevent the elbows from rotating too, right? The creases of your elbows should also be stable for this exercise. So we're pushing in, rotating, and when you're rotating, can you feel the sides of your ribs engaging a little bit? This one, for a lot of people, you're not going to be able to figure it out yet. This is where it's like practice. But this is going to be helping to get the serratus anterior. So the other thing, if you want to help with this, like, so serratus anterior is going to do this too. So if you're kind of pushing in while you're doing that, you're going to get the serratus anterior to engage more. Do we have it? And then we're pushing up, which is kind of almost just a result of leaning forward more. And really, as we're doing this, get your back foot really into the ground. Like my front foot is off the ground. So I'm like really connected, my shoulders are stable, and I have my scapula are like really engaged. And I'm just totally leaning all my body weight in. And when we're leaning in for here, on the base of the wrist is a really good focal point. Okay, so come on up. Do we got it? Do we got that? Okay, we're gonna do it again in a second here. So we're just trying to isolate the different movements in order to kind of feel the different muscles engage. But now we're gonna go, okay? So we're gonna do this again with all 3 combined and see how that goes, okay? So first, get in your stance. So feel your feet, really get into your back foot, and then go ahead and get your body weight into your hands, and then and just go ahead and do that. And again, focus less on your hands and more on the muscles in your pecs, your serratus, and from here now. So are we getting some of this? Is this starting to connect a little bit? Okay. So now let's take a breath in. Try your Ujayi breath. And then as you breathe out, with the Ujayi breath, engage the transversus and pull up on your pelvic floor. It's a lot, right? It's a lot to think about. And part of it is, in time, you don't have to really think about this too much. In time, it can become more automatic, okay? So let's come on up. That's good. Now, here's the other thing. Does this mean, oh my God, David, that I have to be doing this all the time, doing body work? That's not at all what we're doing. It's an opportunity to come into these principles at any particular time when you feel like it's pretty necessary, right? The more pressure and force you're applying to somebody tends to be when you want to really work to do the shoulder stabilization, the core stabilization. So if you're really down there and you're really doing some deeper work on somebody, or if you're in a little bit more of a precarious position, because sometimes if I'm like this and I'm leaning in, or if I'm like this and leaning in, then I really want to engage the transversus to protect my low back. Cool? Good? Okay. So let me consult my notes. Okay. So a couple other things that I want to address. One is what we're doing here, and what I just did is an isometric static movement, right? We're not actually moving. So how does that translate into when we're doing a movement like an effleurage, right? How do we get the shoulder stabilization when we're effleuraging? Well, partly what I would say is when we're coming in and we're applying this force, that the connection that we have with the person's body should give us that ability to engage. So if you have way too much lotion on somebody and you're like, whoosh, then your ability to engage, the shoulder stabilization is going to be diminished, for example. So I want to practice in a real situation with folks as much as we can, where I know we're not wearing shorts or whatever, but maybe we could just do a really quick practice where, and there's a lot of us, I trust that you can all figure this out, you're adults, where we get people on the table. If you want to grab some lotion, you can grab some lotion, but even just grab like a forearm and just practice some effleurage where we're using the body weight and we're coming in and we're practicing the shoulder stabilization. We're just applying all these things just in real practice real quick. So we could do like some effleurage on a forearm, or another thing if people wanted to try stabilization, or like a compression, you could be face down, and you could just lean into somebody's like hamstring or their glute, and you could start to practice this too without necessarily doing a lot of the movements. So does this make sense? Can we do it?
Yep.
One more thing. Actually, wait. One more thing before I say go. I want to talk about real quick the shoulder, elbow, wrist, and this angle. Okay. So in general, if we're doing like effleurage, or if we're doing some of these things, or like fascial work, like C-bowing, right? This is going to be an opportunity where we want to have like our wrists, our elbows, and our shoulders basically stacked. You're going to find that you're going to have to bend your elbows at times, but the more we can keep the stacking of the joints, the more we can stabilize the shoulder and stay out of the rotator cuff. Then the other thing is, I think that the amount of flexion that we're doing in our arm really shouldn't go past like 45 degrees. If we're doing body work from here, how do you use your body weight to be effective? So it's, kind of like from about here to maybe, I don't know, what is this? Where's the goni? So just be aware that tends to be a little closer towards your body. So how this can end up being is, if your table is way too tall, then you're going to be doing body work like this. And that's going to be harder because you're having to lift your arms. You can't really get your body weight into it. Whereas if the table is lower, your arm flexion is less, and then you can really just get the pressure you need more easily through your body weight, and there's a smaller angle between your torso and your arm. Got it? Okay. So all those things, and then remember, your belly button is the vector. So directing your belly button towards the direction that you want to be putting force into the person. Okay. Let's try it, and then I would say whoever wants to be a demo and have a bunch of people poke you, then go for it. Okay.
I got shorts.
Yeah. So yeah, just go for it. And then I can hear, and I'm getting in. Should I think about setting my shoulders back like this? And yes. So this comes back to like the 1 minute warm up. So this is where like these shoulders. So it's basically like a little bit of shoulder. I wouldn't even call it retraction, but we don't want to protract and we don't want to elevate. So we want nice low shoulders with our chest open and getting in there and doing the shoulder stabilization moves with our body weight.
So neutral and relaxed.
Neutral and relaxed. So yes, so thank you. Let's bring that another principle back in, we're trying to do all these things with our body, and it's so complicated and it's overwhelming and I can't remember it all. Just relax, right? We want to have the structural integrity through a little bit of muscular contraction, but really we want to be as loose and fluid in our body as we can, because if we're all tense in our body, our tension is going to become the person's tension on the table. It does not feel as good. So if we're like really like in the flow, then it's going to feel a lot better. Okay, all right, go for it.